Hello everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do an in-depth sniff candle review of the Bath & Body Works Walk in the Woods candle. But first, if you are new to Touch the Fire Twice, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you want to learn more about what I do, why I do it, how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice.com. But for now, let's dig into this candle. So this is the 14.5 ounce traditional 3-wick Bath & Body Works candle. This Walk in the Woods candle, I believe, is a new fragrance. The first time that it came out was this year. I could be wrong, but the first time I sniffed it. And I do believe it was a new fragrance blend launched for autumn 2022. The pour date on this is the 199th day of the year, which is July 18th. So early fall came out. It may still be in some stores. If it's not currently in store, you might see it at Candle Day or at the semi-annual sale come late December. And hopefully it will return because I really enjoy this candle, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this in-depth sniff review on this single Bath & Body Works candle. Now, before we dig into the notes, I will do sort of an in-depth sniff on this, talk through the notes, a couple of notes that are not listed, but that I do get from this fragrance blend, and walk through those notes together so we can really understand what we're smelling for, because this is very much a conceptual, some refer to as cologne candle from Bath & Body Works. The fragrance notes lean more towards what is traditionally considered a masculine blend, or like a men's body care or fragrance or perfume or cologne note, just based on the blend, the notes, the intensity. However, I strongly believe that all fragrance is for everyone, and you should burn and melt and wear and diffuse any fragrance that speaks to you, that makes you feel something. Fragrance and scent memories really are meant to evoke a time, a space, a place, a mood, a moment, a memory. And so it really doesn't matter. If you want to wear a strong rose, if you want to wear a deep, dark oud, whatever it may be, that's what you should wear. There's no true femininity, masculinity. It's all a construct of society. So let's just get that out of the way. That said, it leans in that direction of what some folks may just write off as, oh, I don't like these kind of candles, I don't like these kind of fragrances, this smells like walking through a department store and it's just the heavy men's colognes, which the marketing would say that. However, I really hope that folks who wouldn't normally give a chance to this type of fragrance blend would sniff this, because I think this is a really great example of where Bath & Body Works can cross those lines and actually do an elevated, nearly fine fragrance blend in a $26.50 candle that you probably paid $11 for, really allowing folks who normally wouldn't want to spend the money on a diptyque or a Lofco or a Boy Smells to maybe kind of play with some of those more, I don't want to use the word sophisticated blends, but a more complex, a more nuanced, and less obvious conceptual blend. The one thing I find really impressive about this is it does not smell like a lot of the more, again, we'll go into it, masculine or men's signature collection body care fragrances that lean very kind of, oftentimes, the drugstore, Axe, shaving cream, Old Spice style of fragrance that is very traditionally marketed as men's lines or men's products. This reflects some of that, but really stands on its own and breaks outside of that box a bit to not be so obvious or generic in that sense. Now, Bath & Body Works does work with perfumers and perhaps even sometimes master perfumers. So the folks that create these blends partnering with Bath & Body Works from large world-renowned fragrance houses that also create many quality parfums that you may be aware of, they certainly have the ability, the fragrance knowledge to build complex, evocative blends, but it's not always what sells. It's not always what Bath & Body Works as a mass marketer is looking for. But I think this is one where they kind of slipped one in under the radar as a really elevated blend. So with that, let's get into it. The tough thing with Bath & Body Works is that most fragrances, certainly this style of fragrance, is going to have 7, 8, 10, 12 notes to it. Here, they list 3. So you're really going a little bit nose blind beyond just these 3, and the marketing, the name, the packaging to give you a sense of what this is supposed to evoke, since it is not a literal tree or a literal ingredient or plant or baked good item, as many things are in the gourmand foodie side of Bath & Body Works. But this is a walk in the woods. So just talk through a little bit the label here. It is their traditional wraparound label. It's got a nice sort of embossing to it. A pretty kind of sagey forest green, actually matches my wall almost perfectly in this room. You can tell I really love the green. So this one, it spoke to me at least from the marketing aspect, but we're not here for that. I want a candle that is unique, authentic, and has great burn performance. So ultimately, vessel is less important, though still part of the overall experience. Notes on this one: forest, cedarwood, crisp patchouli, and dark peppercorns. On their website, they simply describe it as a warm, woodsy, natural wonder. So a walk in the woods. Where are the woods? Is it a forest? I mean, this could mean anything. It's non-specific, which is also often the case with Bath & Body Works, but that's okay. It doesn't have to tell us that it is specifically a forest in the Balkan Mountains like you might get with a Lafco candle, but it's still gonna give you a woodsy blend. So sniffing this, to me, this is, it does border, it could be like a parfum. I could see actually wearing this because it's warm, it's woodsy, it's a bit spicy, but it's not dank forest floor. Think your ouds and truffles and mosses. It's not that. It is a dry, bright, or there's a brightness to this blend. And I think a lot of that bright freshness actually comes from the peppercorns, which we'll get into in a minute. Certainly agree with cedarwood, patchouli, and peppercorns. Pepper is very strong in this. It almost leans also toward kind of like a geranium, which I don't know that it specifically is in here. If it is, it could be a middle note just a little bit in there, but it's often considered the other rose, where it's going to be floral, but have sort of an herbaceous, citrusy, spicy angle to it, like a warm green scent, which again, as they're going with the marketing here, green scent is something you could imagine with a walk in the woods. So there could be a little bit of that in there, but it is very much the notes they have on here. Plus there's one big note that is not listed here that I very much get from this. So beyond the geranium, which is I think that could be in here, there is one other that I'll get into. Getting into forest cedarwood. So cedarwood is dark, deep, resinous, yet soft. Earthy, sweet, can sometimes be a bit camphorous. Cooling, think pencil shavings like back in school. It's considered to be less minty than a traditional pine and less musky than a patchouli. And there are many types of cedars, from your true Atlas cedars down to your juniper cypress, Virginia cedars that are used as cedar as well. And there's certainly a heavy base of a really dry, pretty resinous cedar to ground this candle. When you get into patchouli, a lot of folks are scared off patchouli. They think, oh, a bunch of dirty, earthy hippies, but kind of throw away what you think of patchouli. That is one very specific use of patchouli that does not inform how patchouli can come across in other ways. So there are two traditional variations on patchouli, and it comes down to the distillation methods, how they actually extract the fragrance from the patchouli leaf. So the European or American distillation version creates a very sweet, rich, spicy, herbaceous, almost added fruity or kind of wine note to the patchouli. Not so much those woody, earthy notes that you may be familiar with. The other is the more traditional Indonesian version, the distillation technique. And that's gonna have a floral sweetness in its initial note, a rich root-like note, a bit of a delicate earthiness, maybe a little bit swampy, into that earthy, but not dirty. Maybe kind of barnyard-like, but not musty and off-putting. And this one I do think is more the traditional, but this does have a bit of a sweetness. There is an undertone of sweetness throughout this candle across a couple of notes, I believe, but it has a bit of that barnyard, dry, subtle, delicate earthiness. Not knock you over, but a bit of an earthiness that you would expect if you're walking through the woods. This is supposed to evoke that feeling, that grounding feeling of a walk through the woods. And then the final note they list here, dark peppercorns. So assuming by dark they mean black peppercorns. Pink peppercorns and black peppercorns are the two most popular peppercorn notes used in fine fragrance. And your dark peppercorns, everyone knows what black pepper itself smells like. You're grinding it, you're putting on nearly everything. It's actually the most widely used spice on the planet. Peppercorns are going to bring a fresh, dry brightness actually to most fragrances, but woody, warm, spicy. Hot, fresh, almost kind of tingly. Imagine like you sniff black peppercorns, it may make you sneeze or at least get a tingle in your nose. There's that burst of heat, but surprising freshness that you may not expect from pepper. And I certainly do get that bright, fresh pepperiness in this. The one scent that I feel like is a strong base in this that they don't list is either, or maybe it's both, but I'm calling it sort of molasses or even a dried dates. So that dried fruit of a date where it's a little bit sweet, like kind of, like a raisin or a prune, that earthy, rich, deep sweetness from some dried fruits. And molasses, of course, is a byproduct of refining sugarcane into your traditional sugar that you know and use. And it's warmly sweet, dark, tarry, earthy, robust, a little bit bitter if you were to taste it by itself versus using it as an ingredient in, ginger snap cookies. Kind of like burnt brown sugar and deep dark vanilla, so really, really burnt. It can lean into that sort of almost gourmand side, though that's not what we're getting in here. I really get almost that sulfuric, dark, enveloping molasses, which is also giving me that dried date sort of fruitiness of a dried fruit. Very interesting. To me, that's the true base in this, and it is one of those notes that the first half of the candle that I burned through, I didn't even really pick up on a molasses or dried fruit or date note, but sniffing it now with some time to sort of digest the fragrance, it really is heavily present throughout the blend. But so again, you've got the depth of that molasses dried fruit, which is giving you earthiness, but a little bit of a warmth alongside the depth of that resinous, soft, pencil shaving-like grounding cedar that has a bit of a cooling aspect to it, as cedar often does. And where those two, let's call them base notes, maybe a base and a mid note, are balanced is thanks to two really bright, fresh top notes, which are gonna be your peppercorns and your patchouli. So the peppercorn starts off bright, fresh, spicy, that burst of heat or tingle, and the patchouli cools it off a little bit. It adds a tiny hint of a sweetness, a little more of that delicate earthiness, and a little bit of that, let's call it dried barnyard, not quite animalic, not quite hay or like a root, but a bit of a dried, earthy, yet fresh, sweet edge to it. Really, really interesting. And that's why I don't think this is just your run-of-the-mill throw something together, make it a teen boy's body spray. This really does feel like there's some unique twists to this. I would love to know the true build from the perfumer that created this of all the notes that are in this, because I would really imagine there's got to be some citrus in this, I would think, and maybe a floral like your, again, spicy green herbaceous geranium without getting powdery floral by any means. So I really enjoy it. When it comes to the performance, the wick, the wax, the strength, the throw, the projection, like many, though not all Bath & Body Works candles, it's pretty solid. I have one here that is, let's say, 80% burned. I actually have a couple of little wicks that I trimmed there and have not thrown out yet because I think this one is actually, it's done for. But it didn't really soot too terribly. A little bit towards the end there. It burned down very cleanly as far as any drag on the vessel. It had a really strong throw and projection. The strength itself, I mean, a fragrance with these notes in it, you would hope is gonna be a powerhouse. And this is certainly your 7, 8, maybe even 9 potentially if you got it in a room with good ventilation and airflow. It really carried, went all throughout a finished basement and traveled up a bit and kind of sticks around. So some people might like that, some people may not like that. If you don't like the heavy hitters, this one, I would say because of the balance to the actual fragrance blend in the build itself, it's not the choke you out or, oh my gosh, it smells like grandpa walked in and put too much aftershave on. Not at all, but it is strong. So if you like strong, this is for you. If you don't like strong, there's ways to kind of mitigate that and keep it in line with like a 6 strength and throw, but it's not gonna give you a 2 or 3 because it is strong. So that is my overall assessment of Walk in the Woods. It really is a unique take on a wooded forest blend. And I'm excited to see Bath & Body Works kind of playing with a little bit more of those elevated, sophisticated fragrance blends, like we're starting to see in some of their oud blends and their smoked vanillas and things like that. It's not always a hit. There are misses quite often, like many collections and brands, but when they have a hit, it's pretty nice. And this one for me is a classic take on a woody, spicy, bright daylight blend. So definitely check it out if you still see it in your stores. I would love to hear what you think of it if you have purchased it or if you smelled it and didn't like it. Also, let me know what you think about that. And tell me what else you're seeing about Bath & Body Works that kind of elevates this and where it might take you. Because certainly if you like something like this, then you might want to explore things like Lofco or Boy Smells or one of the hundreds of other fragrance brands that are out there. I actually was going to mention the Lofco Terracotta Candle, which I did a review here a couple months back if you want to check it out. There was something in this that when I burned Walk in the Woods, I was like, man, it smells a little bit, not a dupe, and this one is, oh boy, had to choose, this is the killer. This is amazing. But when it comes to a bright, spicy, somewhat woody, fresh, dry daylight blend, they had some similarities. There is cedarwood in both of these, but that's where there's a nice hit of geranium in this, which is also what's making me think that there could be a bit of geranium or something like that in here. So similarities in the kind of thing where if you like one, you may like the other. So if you like Walk in the Woods and want to explore something else, definitely check out the terracotta candle from LAFCO. So that wraps it up for Walk in the Woods. Let me know what other blends you've seen, you've smelled, and you want to hear more about. Until next time, take care.